So hello, what's up? I hope all of you are doing great and welcome all of you to today's session to this session in which we are going to begin with this batch. So I hope all of you are doing great. Quickly type in the chat box, how are you all of you doing? How are you all? Hello. So yeah, all excited to study the CA final audit. I'm sure you must be high on energy. You must be high on your enthusiasm to score really good marks in this subject. And before we begin with this batch, I would request you all to please let me know. Please let me know, where do you all belong to? Which city do you all belong to? Sir, we are doing great. How about you? I am also doing great. I am also very excited about this batch. Awesome. So please let me know your cities. I would love to know your cities, your city, your state. Where do you all belong to? I would love to know that. Nayana, Shiv Kumar, Tinta, Matthew, great. Kerala, Kottayam, Kerala, Bangalore, Karnataka, awesome. Chennai, Raipur, Chhattisgarh, awesome. Kerala, Ernakulam, Kerala, Kochi, Kerala. Oh. I think by the end of this batch, I will be completely knowledgeable about the geography of southern India. Bangalore, Madanapalle, Andhra Pradesh. Sanjana from Thrissur, Kerala. Awesome. Chennai. Doing good, sir. Chennai. Great. So I think we have almost full southern India covered in this batch, and I am sure you people are going to rock in the coming examinations. So first thing you have told me. Now the second question to all of you. What was your score in CA Inter Auditing? What was your score in CA Inter Auditing? Please let me know that fast in the chat box. I know that is something for many of you it would be, sir, let's forget it now. Let's focus on finals. But I want to know, how much did you all score in your CA Inter exams, audit exam? Oh my God. We have the toppers in the class. 52, 58, 63, 56. Now we have the other part also. 51, 42, 48, 42. Oh, 43, 63. So we have a good mix of the crowd. So I am sure we will enjoy a lot in this session. Interesting subject in Inter. You will find it more interesting in CA final. Okay. 51. Awesome. So I think everyone was ranging into 40s or 60s. Now, my request to all of you, that the person who is sitting in front of you, yes, me, Shubham Keswani, theek hai? I secured 71 marks in my CA final and 66 in CA Inter. So now accordingly, I want all of you to make a commitment in the chat box. How much do you expect to score in CA final? What are your expectations, that how much you want to score in CA final? Please make a commitment in the chat box that, sir, we will work hard to achieve this target in the CA final. Arvind, Saddam, Shankar, Shivakumar, I want all of you to make this commitment in the chat box right now. Please tell me, how much are you aiming in CA final? As you wish. I wish all of you to score the all India highest marks in audit. ठीक है? 75 plus, awesome. 85 plus, crazy. 70 above. See, 70 above is a very realistic target that is very achievable if you follow the instructions that I give in the class. 70 plus, awesome. So I am very happy that none of you said 60 or 40 or 50. One of them said 65. 65 is also a good target, but at least keep some target above. Okay, so that you are able to achieve well. I'll work hard to achieve 60 plus in CA final. Cool. Important thing is you need to work hard, right, sir? 60 plus, sir. 75 plus. Awesome. See, whatever guidance I provide you in the class, with that you can easily score. I am saying easily, not much efforts required, easily score 70 plus in these exams. And for your motivation, I will just share one fact with you. So the last exam of auditing was one of the toughest exam of CA final audit, and one of our students went on to secure all India, please listen carefully, huh? All India highest marks in CA final auditing. That is 79 marks in the toughest paper. So that is what you should know, that you have made a right decision by associating with me, by making sure that you are having a fun learning experience with auditing. So without much ado, with full excitement, I would request all of you to keep your water bottles with you, to keep your notebooks with you, to keep your books with you, and let's get on this journey of CA final auditing. So sir, what are we going to study today? We are going to study one standard on auditing that will set the base for your full CA final audit. Sir, what is that standard on auditing? Whenever you have to write something, I will let you know. Till then, just listen to me carefully. Okay. I will ask you to do certain actions, do that. I will ask you to repeat something, repeat that. But just keep your concentration on this screen. Got it, sir? Essay 200. Oh, sir, it was one of our favorite essays. I said yes. It is one of your favorite essays. Sir, what does essay 200 talks about? It talks about overall objective of independent auditor. Come on. Overall objective of independent auditor. And how do you achieve this overall objective? Sir, we achieve this overall objective by conducting the audit as per standards on auditing. So this is your whole essay 200 all about, and trust me, when we end the today's session, you will be like, sir, CA Inter almost fully revised. So this session is your introductory session, or you can say a faster revision or a crash course of what you have already studied in your CA Inter. Major concepts will be covered in this session only. So first of all, let's try to understand what is the overall objective. What is the overall objective? Then we will understand what is independence, how to conduct the audit as per essays. We will focus on those things also. So the overall objective is very simple. Sir, what is that? It says the overall objective of the auditor is to obtain reasonable assurance. As an auditor, I want to obtain reasonable assurance about what? That the financial statements, please focus on financial statements as a whole, are free from material misstatements. Financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatements. Once I get this reasonable assurance, I am in a position to express my opinion. I am in a position to express my opinion. Sir, opinion as to what? That the financial statements have been prepared in all material respects as per the applicable FRF. Okay, so this is what it is all about. And once I have formed my opinion, so the next stage is, I will not take my opinion at home. What do? I express my opinion through a report. So whenever I obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, I will be in a position to express my opinion. Then I will report and communicate as per the standards on auditing. Till now, I have not explained even a single thing to you. I have just told you the overall objective. And this is what we are going to discuss in the today's class. Objective finish, class finish. Done. So let's go one by one. First thing that we are going to pick up here is reasonable assurance. So first of all, sir, what do you mean by reasonable assurance? By reasonable assurance, I mean only one thing. Sir, what is that? Reasonable assurance is a high but not an absolute assurance. As a auditor, I can't give you a guarantee. I can't give you a guarantee that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. I can give you a high level of assurance, but I can't give you an absolute assurance. But sir, how do you get this? You can ask me. How do I get this reasonable assurance? Again, it is very simple, by getting sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. By getting myself sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, that means the evidence should be sufficient as well as appropriate. Did you get this point? Yes, sir. Acha, by sufficiency, what do I mean? Sir, by sufficiency, you mean the quantity of evidence. By sufficiency, I mean the quantity of evidence. By appropriateness, what do you mean? Sir, by appropriateness, I mean the quality of evidence. Got it this point? Got this point, sir. Acha, the quantity is affected by two factors. They say the quantity is affected by two factors. Sir, what are those factors? One is the risk of material misstatement. I am sure you must have heard about it in CA Intermediate. Yes, sir. The another thing is quality of evidence. I have not told you even a single thing, but please let me know. If the risk of material misstatement is higher, what will be the impact on the quantity? What will be the impact on the quantity? Will you need more quantity of evidence or less quantity of evidence? Please tell me, everyone. You don't have to learn anything right now. You just need to understand the flow with me. That's it. Please give me the answer. Nothing to be written. Nothing to be written right now. Just give me the answer. Sir, you will need more evidence. You will need more evidence. Very good. If the quality is good, then tell me, will I require more evidence or will I require less evidence? In case of quality, the quality is optimum. Very good. So if I am getting a good quality of evidence, will I require more quantity or even the lesser quantity will work? Less quantity will work. Very, very good. Sir, in case the quality is good, even the lesser quantity will work. Now let me take a practical example with all of you, which I am sure most of you will relate. So I get two types of idlis. I get two types of idlis. One is a ordinary idli. Another is a ghee roasted idli. One is a ordinary idli, oily idli, normal oil idli. And another one is a ghee roast idli. Which one do you think you will be able to eat more? Normal idli or a ghee roast idli? So if I talk about the ghee roast idli, it is having a better quality. So it will fill up your stomach quickly. Even less idli would be able to satisfy your hunger. Less quantity of idli would be able to satisfy your hunger. So if there is a ghee roasted idli, that means a high quality idli, even that idli in lesser quantity will be able to satisfy your hunger. So that is the same thing. That is the same thing. If the quality is good, it is a ghee roast idli, even the less quantity will satisfy the auditor. Is this part clear to all of you? Yes, sir. Now let's talk about the quality of evidence. Please focus, huh? Sir, what do you mean by quality? Quality is dependent on two factors. Everything you will be able to recall, don't worry. One thing is relevance. The another thing is reliability. Oh. Sir, what do you mean by relevance of audit evidence? Let's understand. Let's understand the topic of relevance of audit evidence. Please focus here. What is happening? What is happening? Achha, just give me a second. Yeah, done. Chalo. Now, sir, what do you mean by the relevance of the audit evidence? Relevance means the logical connection logical connection between the assertion being tested, logical connection between the assertion being tested and the audit procedure performed. The audit procedure performed, or you can say the audit evidence obtained. Sir, please give us one example. Please give us one example. Let's understand. Let's understand, sir, how we will draw and understand this meaning of relevance. So first of all, you would want me to explain the meaning of assertion. What do you mean by assertions? So assertions are a very simple thing. These are the representations by the management. What are assertions? So these are the representations by the management which are embodied in the financial statements, plus they are used by the auditor. They are used by the auditor to design the audit procedures. So till now I have not explained you anything. Okay? I have just told you two definitions. What is the first definition? Sir, relevance. What is relevance? It is a logical connection between the assertion that you are testing and the audit procedure you are performing and the evidence that you are obtaining. Then we discussed about assertion. What is assertion? Representation by the management embodied in the financial statement used by the auditor to design the audit procedures. Let's discuss about the assertions. For example, if I am checking the debtors of a company, okay, please look at it here and keep understanding whatever I am telling. In case you have any doubt, write it down and ask me when I give you the time. Okay. So in case there are debtors worth rupees 1 lakh in my balance sheet. Acha, debtor is what? Debtor is what? Please give me the answer. You must have studied this in CA intermediate. So there are three types of financial statement items: account balance, class of transactions, and there are disclosures. Please give me the answer. What is a debtor? In which category will you add debtors? Is it a account balance? Is it a class of transaction, or is it a disclosure? Please tell me. What shall be the category of debtors? Very good, Yashwant. Very good, others. Very good, Sajimi, Sajivan, Aishat, Garima. Awesome. Sir, it is a account balance. How do you differentiate between the two? It's very simple. Whatever are the balance, these are the balance sheet items. Oh, whatever are the class of transactions, these are the P&L items. Whatever are the disclosures, these are the notes to accounts. All of them have different set of assertions. So for the balance sheet items, the assertions are very simple. These assertions are ERCV. Come on, ERCV. Sir, E for existence, R for rights and obligations. Asset are our right, liabilities our obligation. C for completeness and V for valuation. These are the four assertions which are associated with the balance sheet items. So now if I say there are debtors worth rupees 1 lakh, what is the management trying to represent? Come on. What is the management trying to represent? That 1 lakh rupees worth of debtors exist as on 31st March. We have a right over these debtors to recover our amount. These debtors are complete. We have not left out any debtor, and the valuation is also correct. The valuation is also correct. Now my question to all of you. How do you test these debtors? How do you test these debtors? Sir, we test the debtors based on the assumptions. If I want to check the existence and the right over the debtors, then in that case I can take confirmations from them. I can take balance confirmation from these debtors. The answer is yes. Also, I can do their invoice testing. I must have made sales to them. I can do their invoice testing. The answer is yes. But now if I talk about completeness, will these procedures work for completeness? Can I check the completeness by taking confirmation? The answer is no. Sir, how come? These confirmations, these invoice testing, you will perform on the listing of the management. The debtors listing that the management must have prepared. On this debtors listing, you will take the confirmation, you will do the invoice testing. But if I talk about completeness, the risk is this only, that the listing could be incomplete. Yes, sir. The listing could be incomplete. Now, what procedure do you think I can do in this case? Sir, in this case, rather than going by the listing, because there can be debtors apart from that listing, I can take bank statements. I can take bank statements. Bank statements for the month of April, May and June. Why, sir? Because I am testing the debtors as on 31st March. These debtors are existing as on 31st March. So they must have paid me. They must have given me the money in April, May or June. So whatever have been the inward receipts by the company, I can caution my client. Sir, were they your debtor who have paid you the money? Were they your debtor who have paid you the money? So by cautioning them, I can check the completeness of the debtors, whether all the debtors have been recorded or not. Is this part clear to all of you? Is this part clear to all of you? So for testing the assertions of existence and rights, these were the relevant audit evidence. These were the relevant audit evidence. And for checking the completeness, this becomes the relevant audit evidence. Is the concept of relevance clear to all of you? Please tell me. Until and unless this concept is clear, you won't be able to understand the things further. Quickly tell me, is this part clear? Sajimi is clapping, sir. I am enjoying. Got it or not? Done, done. Yes, sir. Similarly, if I talk about valuation, sir, how do we value a debtor? We value the debtor based on the amount due from the debtor. Yes, sir. Minus the provision amount. Okay. So this amount due you have already checked here. This amount due you have already checked here. But now you have to calculate the provision amount. Now you have to calculate the provision amount. How do you check the provision amount now? How do you check the provision amount? By checking the aging of the debtors. By checking the aging of the debtors. Do you understand the aging? Yes, sir, we understand the aging. We have studied in Schedule 3. Schedule 3 says there are 5 types of aging. Less than 6 months, 6 to 1 year, 1 to 2 year, 2 to 3 year, and then more than 3 year. For different types of aging, we will create different types of provision percentage. And based on those percentage, you will do the provisions testing. So again, this becomes your relevant audit procedure. And based on this, you get your audit evidence. Based on this, you get your audit evidence. So this is all about relevance. Now let's talk about reliability. Let's play a small game. This you already studied in your CF Inter 5 SA 500, but I will again wrap it up for you. Please understand and listen to me for 1 minute. Come on, look at me here. I am getting one audit evidence from the management, another audit evidence directly from an external third party. Please listen carefully. I am getting one audit evidence from the management, another one from an external third party. You will have more faith on which evidence? Management one or third party? Sir, third party. external audit evidence are more reliable than the internal audit evidence. Remember that point? Yes, sir. Similarly, internally generated evidence, come on, internally generated evidence means whatever evidence that is generated within the entity, that can also be reliable if the internal controls are good. The internal controls over its preparation are good. Got it, sir? Now, again, there are two types of evidence. One information I have got orally, the another I have got in the documented form. Which one do you think would be more reliable, orally or documented? Sir, documented form would be more reliable. In documented, which one would be more reliable? Original documentation or photocopy? Sir, original documentation would be more reliable. So these points we will again study. These points we will again study in Essay 500, but I hope you understand what is more reliable and what is not reliable, and the quality part is also clear. So what was the topic that we were discussing? Sir, we were discussing the concept of reasonable assurance. That is a high but not an absolute level of assurance. In that we studied the concept of sufficient and appropriate evidence. How do you get the reasonable assurance? By obtaining sufficient and appropriate evidence. Sufficiency means quantity, appropriateness means quality, and these are the factors which affect the sufficiency and appropriateness. Clear? Yes, sir. So here we have just got to know about the meaning of reasonable assurance. Now let me also share one more thing with you so that it becomes easier for you in future to understand how we study audit. Do you know the audit cycle? This is one more concept I want all of you to know. Do you know the audit cycle, how the whole audit process works? It's very simple. First of all, you accept the assignment. Okay? You accept the assignment. Got it, sir? Once you have accepted, then you perform your audit procedures. Got it, sir? We perform our audit procedures. Once you perform your audit procedures, what do you get? You can write this one down. Okay? Once you perform the audit procedures, what do you get? Sir, we get the audit evidence. Very good. On this evidence, what do you do? Sir, we draw conclusion. As an auditor, we draw conclusion. Conclusion as to whether it is a sufficient and appropriate evidence or not. Based on the conclusion, you form your opinion and then you report. It is my request, please write this down. This is something that you should remember throughout this batch. This is the audit cycle and this will be helpful in all the topics that we study. Please write it down and type in the chat box DDD. Done, sir. Very good. Last 10 seconds. Please be fast. Awesome. So we have good students who are writing so fast. So now let's move to the notes and see what is given here. So sir, we were standing on this topic of reasonable assurance. Okay? I already told you what is a reasonable assurance. Yes, sir. Reasonable assurance means you need to obtain a high but not an absolute level of assurance. Okay? How do you get? By getting sufficient and appropriate evidence. So this topic is also given here in your notes. Where it went? No. Yes, here it is. Sufficient and appropriate evidence. To obtain reasonable assurance, we need sufficient and appropriate evidence to reduce the audit risk to an acceptably low level. Achha, what is the audit risk? For the sake of simplicity, I will discuss it in detail little later on. Just understand the risk of wrong audit. So wrong audit means wrong audit opinion. When the financial statements are materially misstated. When the financial statements have material misstatement and still you give the wrong opinion, that means you give a clean opinion. That is called the audit risk. So it says you can reduce the audit risk to an acceptably low level, but can audit risk become zero? Can I reduce the audit risk to zero? The answer is no. This audit risk can never become zero. It can be reduced to an acceptably low level. That's why we obtain reasonable assurance to draw our opinion. It is a high but not an absolute level of assurance. How do we get it? By obtaining sufficient and appropriate evidence. These points we have already discussed. Now my question to all of you, so that we can move to another important topic. Sir, why are we not able to reduce our audit risk to zero? Why are we not able to detect all the material misstatements? Why are we compromising with a reasonable assurance? Can anyone help me out? Can anyone help me out? You have already studied this in CA Inter. So please try to recall. What was that topic that made you compromise with a reasonable assurance? That made you compromise by reducing the audit risk to an acceptably low level but not to zero. What do you think is that topic? Sir, the right answer is inherent limitations of auditing. Inherent limitations of auditing, that is ILA. Come on, that is ILA. So let's move on. Let's move on to that topic. And here it is that, here is your topic. Here is your topic. So sir, inherent limitations of auditing says, first of all, we talk about audit evidence. This audit evidence will be persuasive but not conclusive. This will be persuasive, not conclusive. Got it, sir? What do you mean by persuasive? That means you will obtain a sufficient and appropriate evidence, but you can't obtain a guarantee that everything is all right. Got it, sir? From this persuasive evidence, what do you get? Sir, we get reasonable assurance. We get reasonable assurance but not an absolute assurance. Got it, sir? Again, from this reasonable assurance, whatever opinion that we form, this opinion has a risk. What is the risk of giving a wrong opinion? Sir, this is called the audit risk, and this audit risk can't be made zero. This audit risk can't be made zero. This can be reduced to an acceptably low level. Is the concept of inherent limitations clear? What does inherent limitation lead to? Please understand with me. First thing is about evidence. You have to learn it with me, huh? This evidence is what? Say it with me. Sir, it is a persuasive evidence but not a conclusive evidence. From this we obtain reasonable assurance but not an absolute assurance. The opinion that we form, it has some risk which can't be made zero but can be reduced to an acceptably low level. So let's understand and see what it says. These are the 3 points it says in the wordings. First of all, because of the audit risk, because of the inherent limitations, you can't reduce the audit risk to zero. So you can't obtain absolute assurance. Plus, most of the audit evidence will be persuasive rather than conclusive. Are these 3 points crystal clear? Yes, sir. Now, sir, why is this happening? Why is this happening? This is because of the nature of the whole audit process. So audit has two parties: management, auditor, and the circumstances. Come on. Management, auditor, and the circumstances. First limitation is because of them. Say it with me. Acha, if you are not saying that, you will not be able to remember. Huh? Pehle I am telling you. You have to follow my instructions very diligently. So the first issue, first limitation is because of them. That is the management. That is the nature of financial reporting. Whatever financial statements that you are auditing, are they crystal correct? Are they fully accurate? The answer is no. Sir, why? We all understand when the management prepares these financial statements, they make certain accounting estimates. can the estimates be made with 100% accuracy? The answer is no. So if the estimates can't be made with 100% accuracy, how can we as an auditor say that the financial statements are true and correct? That's why we give a true and fair view, not a true and correct view, because the financial statements involve judgment by the management. Management is required to make a lot of judgments regarding the fair values, regarding the future values, regarding the accounting estimates, provisions. Nothing can be absolutely correct. Nothing can be absolutely correct. So the first point is because of them, that is the preparation of financial statement involves judgment by the management. Judgment by the management in applying the requirements of the applicable FRF. Sir, what do you mean by applicable FRF? For the sake of simplicity, FRF would mean the guidance you use for preparing the financial statement. That is your Schedule 3. That is your Indian accounting standards. That is your accounting standards. Okay? When you are applying the FRF to the facts and circumstances of the entity, for example, accounting estimates. Is the first part clear to all of you? Yes, sir. Very simple. Limitation is because of them. Now comes the second part, our limitation. Sir, what is our limitation? Focus here. It says that the auditor is dependent. Write with me. Auditor is dependent. Sir, dependent on whom? Management. So the management and others don't provide the complete information relevant to preparation, presentation of the financial statement. Preparation, presentation of the financial statement. So they are not providing, they don't provide us with the complete information. Why do you think they will not provide us with the complete information? Why do you think they will not provide us with the complete information? Because management is a fraud. Management is a fraud. So the second point is very simple. If they are not providing you with the complete information, that means these people are fraud, and not aise fraud, not a small fraud. They do fraud very carefully. They do it very sophisticatedly. That means the fraud is a sophisticated and carefully organized scheme. Do it with me. Yani, this fraud is not easy to detect. This fraud is not easy to identify. Why? Because it has been done in a very organized manner. Sophisticated and carefully organized schemes which are designed to conceal it so that no one can find it out. Now you will say to me, sir, as an auditor, let's catch these fraudsters. Let's catch these fraudsters. But let me tell you, you can't. Why, sir? Why can't we catch a fraudster? Because you are doing audit, you are not doing investigation. You are doing audit, you are not doing investigation, and that's the third point of our limitation. Let's understand what they have given. That audit is not an official investigation. So 3 points, 3 of them are related. You just need to understand the relation. What is our limitation? We are dependent. We are dependent on the management. So the management may not provide us with complete information. Why? Because they are fraud. And fraud is not easy to detect because it is a sophisticated and carefully organized scheme. So let's catch it. We can't. Audit is not an investigation. So we don't have the special legal powers. Example of search. Please quickly go through these 3 points, and once you are able to recall, type in the chat box DDD. Learn these 3 points right away, right now. Very easy. Just do it in the same flow that I taught you. Come on, everyone. Let's see who comes first. Yes, auditor is a watchdog, not a bloodhound. Very good, very good, very good. Last 10 seconds. Awesome. Awesome, 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 awesome. Yes, sir. Let's move to the third point. First limitation, theirs. Second limitation, ours. And the third limitation is because of the circumstance. You need to maintain a balance between the benefit and the cost, and also there is a time involved. Sir, what do you mean by time? There is timeliness of reporting and a balance between benefit of cost. See what it says. It says that the relevance of the information. Sir, what do you mean by relevance? That is the value of the information. It tends to diminish over a period of time. As the time passes, the value of the information comes down. There is a balance to be struck between the reliability of information and its cost. Sir, what do you mean by it? Please understand. So there are two things that you need to understand here. First of all, for doing audit, there is a shortage of time. So you need to maintain a balance between the time and cost involved and the benefits of audit. That is one interpretation of this. The second interpretation, I will give you an example. Only through that example, you will be able to understand what I am trying to convey. There is an internal control in the entity. I want to test that internal control. Okay? I want to test that internal control. For that internal control, two documents are available. One documentation is of August. Another documentation is of March. Okay? I hope you understand that the financial year is April to March. Okay? One documentation is of August. The another documentation is of March. Which one do you think would be more reliable? Which one do you think would be more reliable, more relevant for you? Please tell me. There are two types of documentation available. Internal control, just for your simplicity, it is a nothing but a process. So whatever process I am testing, two documents are available, August document and the March document. More reliable and more relevant, which one do you think? So one student has said August, another has said March. Good. One more March. March is getting more votes. Very good. Waiting for more answers. March will be more relevant. So now everyone is saying March. See, let me explain. March will give you the reality check of what is the latest process going. Okay? It will give you the reality check of what is the latest process going. August documents, okay? August documents can be manipulated. These can be manipulated and we are not sure whether these documents were even prepared in August or not. Okay? So that's why they are trying to convey, as the time passes, the relevance of the information, thereby its value tends to diminish, because there are higher chances of manipulation. There are higher chances of the process getting improved over a period of time. So more recent documentation that you take, that recent documentation is considered to be more reliable than the older documentation. Is this part clear? Yes, sir. And the third part says, next topic says, the fourth point talks about 4 matters. Fourth point talks about 4 matters. These are the matters in which the chances of not detecting the material misstatement are very high. Sir, what are these matters? So first matter, logically it is fraud. Sir, why it is difficult to detect a fraud? Please understand. This is not an ordinary fraud. In case an employee does a fraud, who will detect? Senior management will detect. Very easy. But what if the senior management itself is doing the fraud? Who will be able to detect? Sir, no one. So fraud particularly involving the senior management. In case employee is doing the fraud, senior management will catch him. But if the senior management itself is doing the fraud, no one will be able to catch them. Second point, collusion. Sir, what do you mean by collusion? Every entity has a purchase department. Okay? Please understand. Now, if that purchase department, the manager of that purchase department colludes with the supplier, okay, colludes with the treasury department that gives payment to that supplier. If these three parties mix up, they collude, they team up, don't you think that the fraud will become very easier? The answer is yes. Do you think anyone will be able to catch them? The answer is no, because all of them have got together, the purchaser, the supplier, the accountant, the treasury person. If everyone gets together, do you think it will be easier to catch the fraud? The answer is no. It will be a highly planned fraud. As someone is talking about Ramalingam Raju, the Satyam case, yes, Satyam case was also a very planned fraud in which even the auditor, that is the PwC, also got involved in that. So in case there is a collusion, it would be very tough to detect this fraud. So what are the two types of fraud which are difficult to detect? Please say na. What are the two types of fraud? Senior management and collusion. Come on. Senior management and collusion. Second part. Do you know that in the financial statements you are required to disclose the related party relationships and transactions? Huh? Are you aware about the same, that you have to disclose the related party relationships and transactions? You must have studied about it in, you know what, AS 18 in your CA intermediate and IND AS 24 in CA final level. Okay. So these two standards say that you have to disclose your related party relationships and transactions. But you know what? As an auditor, how do I get to know about these related parties unless the management informs me about it? So there can be various agreements and contracts which I am not even aware about. The management is not even sharing with me. It could be knowingly or unknowingly. You are getting the points. Knowingly, the management can hide the related party information from me, so it will not be disclosed in the you can say financial statement. Or unknowingly, they may miss out on sharing the related party information. So again, this could be knowingly or unknowingly, but related party is something that the auditor can't do much about, and this existence and completeness of related party relationships and transaction is another area where there are chances of misstatement being missed out by the auditor. Now sir, next point, just understand these points with me, I will make you remember. Oh, got it sir. Next point is non-compliance with the laws and regulations. Achha, how many laws do you think are applicable to a company? Please write in the chat box. How many laws do you think are applicable on a company? Only Companies Act 2013? Only Companies Act 2013? The answer is no. So many laws are applicable to an entity. The basic ones so you know. Let me give you some more knowledge. Do you know there is a law about environmental protection? Sir, yes. There is an Environmental Protection Act. There is a Child Labor Act. So there are Factories Act. There are so many laws. How as an auditor do you expect me to check the compliance with every law? I can't check. So there can be some non-compliances which I can miss out. And sir, what is the problem with that? In case there is a non-compliance, company will be imposed a penalty. For that penalty, there needs to be a provision in the financial statement. So again, if I miss out on any non-compliance, the financial statements may be misstated. The financial statements may be materially misstated. And the last point is, can you as an auditor give a guarantee? Can you as an auditor give a guarantee that the entity will be continue as a going concern? Are you an auditor or an astrologer? Sir, we are not an astrologer. We can't comment whether the company will continue as a going concern or not. So again, this area of going concern is something we can't comment about. So there can be future events or conditions that can cause an entity to cease to continue as a going concern. Now I know what all of you are waiting for. Sir, please make us learn these 4 points. We have understood these 4 points. Please help us in learning them. So it's very easy. Whenever the entity does a fraud, with whom do they do the fraud? With the related party. Oh, in case they are doing the fraud, with the related party, is it a compliance with the laws and regulation or a non-compliance? Sir, it is a non-compliance. Oh my God. If there is a non-compliance, what will be imposed? penalty, such a heavy penalty that their going concern will be affected. That their going concern will be affected. These are the 4 points that you need to remember. Is the flow clear to all of you? Please see here and let me know. Is the flow clear? Fraud with the, please say with me, related party. If you are doing a fraud with the related party, it is an example of no-clar. Sir, what do you mean by no-clar? Non-compliance with laws and regulation. Say it with me. Non-compliance with laws and regulation. And if you are doing a no-clar, there will be such a heavy penalty that your going concern is affected. Giving you 1 minute again. Giving you 1 minute again. Quickly learn these points and type in the chat box. Done, 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 done. D in the chat box. Quickly. Take 2 sips of water and recall these points 2 to 3 times. Done, done. Awesome, 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 awesome. Now let's talk about the note. And after the note, we will do the question bank. Okay? Get ready for the note. Let's see what it says. It says, because of the inherent limitations of auditing, because of this thing that we just discussed, because of ILA, there is an unavoidable risk. Unavoidable risk means this risk can't be mitigated, that some material misstatement may not be detected even though audit is planned and performed as per the essays. Now your question comes, how do we know that the audit is planned and performed as per the essays? That I have already told you. Already told you. Sir, when did you tell us? I told you, there is a circle. There is an audit circle. Yes, sir. When this circle is done as per the standards on auditing, that means your procedures are as per the standards on auditing, your evidence is as per the standards on auditing, your opinion and reporting is as per the standards on auditing, that means the audit is as per the standards on auditing. So even if you are doing the audit planned and performed as per the standards on auditing, still some material misstatement may remain. So sir, tell us one thing. In case later a material misstatement is detected, suppose there is a company, later in that company's financial statement material misstatement is detected, will the auditor be penalized? The answer is no. If the audit is done as per the standards on auditing, the auditor can't be penalized, and that's what the second point says. Subsequent discovery of a material misstatement resulting from fraud or error, we don't care, doesn't indicate that there was a failure to conduct the audit as per essays. So what do you think? They are supporting the auditor or going against the auditor? What are these 2 points doing? You have to understand the feel, huh? The more feel you understand, the more you will get closer to this subject and you will start finding it more interesting. Please tell me, what are these 2 points trying to do? Support the auditor or going against the auditor? Sir, these are supporting the auditor. These points are extending their support for the auditor, that we are there for you. We understand because of inherent limitations, some material misstatement may remain. So even if they are found later, we will not penalize you if you have done your audit as per standards on auditing. But now they will change their side. Now they will not support, they will warn the auditor. Sir, how will they warn? See what they are written. Pass percentage of ICI is less. Please understand the feel of this line. Pass percentage of ICI is less. Does that mean that we stop studying? The answer is no. So even if there are inherent limitations of auditing, it is not a justification to be satisfied with less than persuasive audit evidence. Auditor has to obtain persuasive audit evidence. He can't be satisfied. He can't be satisfied with less than persuasive audit evidence. Are these 3 points clear? Yes, sir. 2 points supporting the auditor, 1 point warning the auditor. What are the points of supporting? So the first point says, due to inherent limitation, there are chances a material misstatement may not be detected even though audit is planned and performed as per the standards on auditing. The second point says that subsequently, if you find any material misstatement, that does not indicate in itself that the audit was not done as per the standards on auditing. So 2 points supporting. And the third point, warning. This is not a justification, huh? ILA is not a justification to be satisfied with less than persuasive audit evidence. I hope these 3 points are clear. Now, please come with me to the question bank. Let's discuss the first question that is given in your question bank. A very, very important question from exam point of view. Let's understand. Messrs. SG and Company Chartered Accountants were appointed as the stat auditor. Please look at it here. The company implemented the internal controls for the prevention and detection of frauds. The auditor carried out the test of controls and found out there was no major observation. All cool. After the completion of audit, the audit report was submitted by the auditors and the audited results were issued. Oh. Acha, tell me one thing. Is test of controls enough? Is test of controls enough, or they were required to do something more? Obviously, sir, they were required to perform more substantive procedure. They have just tested the control. Now they say a fraud pertaining to the area of inventory came to light and the auditors were asked to make a submission. So see what they said. They said because of the inherent limitations, it is not possible to get persuasive evidence of the matters like fraud. Acha, tell me one thing. Did they do their audit as per the essays? The answer is no. They just performed the test of control, and we all understand कि in the area of inventory, we have studied in our CA intermediate that there was one essay 501, right? In that essay 501, it was written that you are required to do some physical verification, huh? You remember there was some point like that you have to physically verify whenever inventory is material to the financial statement. Yes, sir, we remember. But did the auditor do that? The answer is no. The auditor did not do that. Sir, how we will write the answer? Same way that it was given in the notes. So first of all, you write about the essay 200. You can ignore SQC1 here. You write about essay 200. Then you talk about those points that I have given you. That there is an unavoidable risk that some material misstatement may not be detected even though audit is planned and performed as per essay. You support the auditor. Then you again support the auditor that subsequent discovery doesn't indicate a failure to conduct the audit as per essay. Then you warn the auditor. Inherent limitation is not a justification. Inherent limitation is not a justification to be satisfied with less than persuasive evidence. Now, sir, how do you know that audit was done as per the standards on auditing? That is the circle that I draw for you. That whether the auditor has performed the audit as per essays is determined by the audit procedures performed. What do you get by performing the audit procedures? Sir, audit evidence, sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence. And the third part is the audit report based on the evaluation of the evidence. If these three things are as per the standards on auditing, that means the audit is as per the standards on auditing. So do you think the auditor gave a correct statement? The auditor did not give a correct statement. Quickly go through this answer, giving you 20 seconds and tell me in the chat box, is the full flow clear to all of you? Is it a logically well written answer by ICAI? Please tell me. Come on, come on, come on. Be energetic. Yes, sir. Awesome. Awesome, 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 awesome. Very good. Now, they have also asked one more part. I want all of you to answer that. Also discuss certain subject matters or assertions certain subject matters or assertions where it is difficult to detect the material misstatement due to the potential inherent limitations. So please give me the answer. What will you write in this case? What are the subject matters or assertions where it is difficult to detect the material misstatement? Huh? What will you write in this case? We have already discussed. Hint, 4 matters were there. 4 subject matters were there. Let's see who gets them right. We already learnt them in the class. 1, 2, 3, 4. All were related. They are not asking the 4 inherent limitation. They are asking the 4 subject matters. Very good, Rahul. Very good, Yashwant. Very good. Shabash. Awesome. So the right answer is fraud. Fraud with the related party. That is your no clar. And the last point is fraud involving senior management and fraud involving collusion. And the last point is so much penalty that what will be affected? Your going concern will be affected. Very, very good. So these are the 4 points. As you can see, even ICI has written them. Now let's move to question number 2. Come on everyone, let's move to the question number 2. Question number 2, no need to read the whole question. Let's see what it says. Certain queries raised in his mind. What does reasonable assurance mean? What is the meaning of reasonable assurance? It is a high but not an absolute level of assurance. Repeat after me and say it as loudly as you can. Even the neighbors should get to know that you are doing chartered accountancy. Okay? All the neighbors should get to know that you are doing chartered accountancy. Shout with me. It is a high but not an absolute level of assurance. Once more. It is a high but not an absolute level of assurance. Once more. It is a high but not an absolute level of assurance. And how do you get it? By getting sufficient and appropriate evidence. Come on, do it with me. By getting, acha, you are not doing the dancing part now. Let me tell you, whoever does the dancing part with me in the class gets 5 marks extra by ICI. I have this agreement with ICI. Okay? There is a MOU signed between us. So it is a high but not an absolute level of assurance. And how do we get? By getting sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Acha, tell me why it is not possible to get absolute assurance. Why it is not possible to get absolute assurance? Because of inherent limitations of auditing. So you need to write about these 3 points of inherent limitation. They have not written the 4th point, but you can also write the 4th point in the exams. So till now, I hope everything is crystal clear to all of you. Now my request to everyone, if everything till here is clear, just type in the chat box DDD and eyes closed. Okay? Type in the chat box eyes closed and close your eyes. Let's do something magical. Chalo. Then we will move to the next topic. Close, sir. Awesome, 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 awesome. Everyone close your eyes. Just relax. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. Once again, take a deep breath in and breathe out. Keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing. Keep a smile on your face. Don't forget to smile. Just observe your breath. Just observe the sounds that you are hearing right now. It can be the sound of the fan, the sound of the air conditioner, any sound that you are hearing right now. Just take your attention towards that. Keep breathing, keep breathing. Now, at the count of 3, take a deep breath in. Breathe in. 2, 3. Hold, hold, hold. And slowly, 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 slowly breathe out. One more time with my count. Breathe in. 2, 3. Hold, hold, hold. And slowly, slowly, slowly breathe out. Keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing. Don't forget to smile. Thank Almighty, whoever you have faith in, for everything that it has given to you, for all the things it has blessed you with. Thank the Almighty with a smile on your face. Now bring back your attention towards your body, towards your surroundings, towards the place that you are sitting in, and start rubbing your hands. With full energy, give your 100%, give your 100% in everything that you do. From today onwards, commit with me that you will give your 100% in everything that you do so that you have utmost satisfaction and happiness in the life. Now you can gently place your hands on your eyes. For those wearing spectacles, please remove them before doing that. Yeah. Just feel this relaxation. Massage your cheeks, massage your forehead. Pull down your ears, pull up your ears. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do it with me. Yes. And taking your time, whenever you feel good, you can open your eyes. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? Take a 2 or 3 sips of water and get back. Let's move to the next topic. Topic. We are back with energy. We are back with energy. Let's move to the next topic, sir. Good day. Acha, tell me one thing. Chalo. Let's start. Let's move to the next topic. All set, everyone? Please tell me. All set, all ready? Feeling fresh? Done. Chalo. Meditation is combo with audit. Yes, meditation is a combo with audit. Chalo. Everyone is set, sir. Now tell me one thing. There is a problem of inherent limitations. There is a problem of inherent limitations, and there could be a fraud that we are not able to detect. There could be a non-compliance with law and regulation that we are not able to detect. But there is one thing as an auditor that we can do. Sir, what is that thing? We can stay alert. We as an auditor can stay alert. We never know in which document we find the non-compliance with law regulation, in which document we find the existence of a related party, in which document we find that there is something fraudulent happening in the company. So as an auditor, we have to stay alert. Got this point? Yes, sir. Now you must have been aware about which topic I am going to discuss right now. Sir, the alertness wala topic is skepticism. That is the professional skepticism, one of the most beautiful topic of CA final auditing, and I'm sure you will really enjoy it. Acha, let me tell you a story. So I'm not sure what happens in southern India. In northern India, there is a famous producer, TV serial producer, whose name is Ekta Kapoor. Okay? So what she does now, she makes very amazing serials. So I will talk about one of the episodes of the serial that my mom watches a lot, and I will narrate that to you. So what happens in that serial? There is a wife and there is a husband. So the wife is waiting for the husband. It is late night. It is around 1 or 2 a.m. in the late night. Okay? And it is a very, very, very dark surrounding. Okay? and the wife is very worried that where is her husband. ठीक है? And then there are sounds of animals crying in the background. The cat is meowing, the dogs are barking, the dogs are also hooting. Ow! Ow! So it is a all horrific, ठीक है, type of surrounding. And the wife is very worried that where is her husband. She is walking fast, here, there, here, there, walking from left to right, right to left. And then suddenly the bell rings, ting tong, the husband is here. And the husband is like worried. Now what will he do? So the wife is like, where were you? He said, yeah, I was just busy with my friends. Just there was something urgent that we were discussing, and that's why I got late. The wife was like, okay. Then suddenly wife saw that on the white shirt that the husband was wearing, there was a red stain. There was a red stain on his shirt, and she cautioned her husband. How come you got this? How come you got this red stain? And the husband got worried. What will he say in this situation? So he said, how do I know? I was there at the McDonald's. I was feeling very hungry. So in that hungerness, I just quickly opened the ketchup. And just when I opened the ketchup, it flew out. And some ketchup got on my shirt. It is because of that only that this red stain is here. So wife was like, okay. So the husband went inside the bathroom, kept his shirt outside, and the wife started examining that shirt. She started smelling that shirt. It is not the ketchup, it's something else. Now what was that something else? The show got over. But this was all about professional skepticism. Let's understand what's written in your book. See what's written. Professional skepticism is nothing but the attitude of that wife. She was alert to the conditions that can indicate possible misstatement due to error or fraud. She cautioned her husband, what is this red stain all about? When the husband gave the explanation, after he went to the bathroom, she did the critical assessment of the audit evidence. Is the professional skepticism definition clear to all of you? Is the whole definition clear to all of you? What are the keywords you need to write? Yes, sir. This is nothing but a attitude. What are the 3 points of attitude? Alertness, questioning mind, and critical assessment of the audit evidence. Are these 3 parts clear? Yes, sir. Quickly recall them with me. It is an attitude. Attitude, staying alert to the circumstances that may indicate fraud. Then having a questioning mind. And after the husband goes inside, you do the critical assessment of the audit evidence. Now, sir, the next question that can be asked by ICI is, what are the 4 areas where the auditor needs to stay alert? Just understand the flow with me. It is very easy. First part says that the audit evidence is contradicting with the other audit evidence. For example, please understand, there is a bank balance in the balance sheet. That balance is of, let's say, 1 lakh rupees. And even in the bank statement that the management shared with us, we did not get the bank statement ourselves. Management shared that bank statement with us. In that bank statement also, it is 1 lakh only. But when we got the bank confirmation under SA 505, when we got the bank confirmation, in that it was not 1 lakh. In that it was only 100. Oh my God, 3 zeros gone. Now, is it a contradicting audit evidence? Yes, sir. Bank statement, which is one audit evidence, is contradicting with the confirmation. Do you think you will find the bank statement reliable? The answer is no. It brings into question the reliability of documents and the responses to the inquiries of audit evidence. Plus, what are you smelling right now? What are you smelling? Sir, we are smelling fraud. This is an indication of fraud. If there is a fraud, what do you think? As an auditor, will your work increase or decrease? Sir, it will increase. That means the need for audit procedures, in addition to that is required by standards on auditing. Are these 4 points crystal clear? Yes, sir. So you have to stay alert to the bank balance and the confirmation. So whenever there is a contradicting audit evidence, that means you will question the reliability of one evidence. What are you smelling? Fraud. That means your work will increase. Are these 4 points clear? Come on, everyone. Giving you 1 minute. Giving you 1 minute. Learn these 4 points right away, right now. Quickly learn these 4 points right away, right now. Where an auditor needs to stay alert. Contradicting audit evidence, that brings into question the reliability of documents. We are smelling fraud. That means we need to perform additional audit procedures. Recall it 2 to 3 times. Easy, easy, easy. Come on, come on, come on, everyone. Awesome. Awesome, 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 awesome. Very good. Crazy. Now, sir, what is the benefit of performing these additional procedures? What is the benefit of performing these additional procedures? So it says maintaining the professional skepticism is necessary to reduce the risk of 3 things. Please understand first with me. First of all, overlooking unusual circumstances. For example, there was one entity which gave its warehouse on rent for free. That means no money was involved. In case they are giving their warehouse on rent for free, what do you think the other party would be? What do you think the other party would be? Sir, there are high chances that it would be a related party. There are high chances that it would be a related party. So if you are staying alert, then you can avoid the chances of overlooking unusual circumstances. Is it usual for a company? Is it usual for a company to give the warehouse for free? The answer is no. It is a very unusual case. So if you find something unusual, then there are chances that it could be a fraud, it could be a transaction with a related party. So second point, overgeneralizing when drawing the conclusions from the audit observation. Sir, what does this point say? Had I not had professional skepticism, had I done my audit very usually, I would have relied on the bank statement. Based on my reliance on the bank statement, I would have said that the bank balance is clear. But I did not form a general conclusion. I took a bank confirmation. Additionally, and instead of generalizing my conclusion, I took a step ahead. I took an extra step so that I can find something such as fraud. So it says you don't overgeneralize while drawing the conclusion from the observation. And last point is using inappropriate assumptions in determining the nature, timing and extent of audit procedure. This is the same point which is written here, that in case you are following professional skepticism and you get to know that there is a fraud, that means you will have to perform some extra procedure. So the last point basically says that you will not be using inappropriate assumptions in determining the nature, timing and extent of procedures. That means you will increase your procedure in case you find something which is of fraud nature. Are these 3 points clear conceptually? Yes, sir. We don't have to overgeneralize while drawing the conclusion. We don't have to overlook the unusual circumstance. And the third point it will save us from making inappropriate assumptions while designing the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedure. So these points we have understood, but it is very tough to recall when it comes to writing in the exams. So I will give you a very simple way of recalling it. When you are doing so much hard work, it will reduce the risk of heart attack. It will reduce your risk of heart attack. Sir, how can you say it is reducing the risk of heart attack? Whenever you have a heart attack, what is the sound that comes out of you? Sir, it is like "Ui." Say it with me. Ui. Sir, what do you mean by "Ui"? "Ui" means O for overlooking unusual circumstances. Another O for overgeneralizing when drawing the conclusion. I means inappropriate assumptions while deciding the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedure. So let's revise the whole topic again, and then I will give you 1 minute to go through it yourself. First point, what do you mean by professional skepticism? Remember that serial attitude. Attitude in which the madam is alert, the madam is having a questioning mind and doing the critical assessment of the evidence. What we are required to be alert to? Bank statement versus bank confirmation. Come on, bank statement versus bank confirmation. Audit evidence is contradicting the other evidence. When two evidence are contradicting, you are questioning the reliability. There is an indication of fraud. That means extra audit procedure. This will reduce the risk of heart attack. What is "Ui"? So what is "Ui"? Overgeneralizing when drawing the conclusion. Yes, sir. Overlooking unusual circumstances and using inappropriate assumptions in designing the nature, timing, and extent of procedure. Is the whole concept of professional skepticism clear to all of you? Please tell me. Then I will give you a minute to do this topic. Crystal clear or not? Though this is something you have already done in CA intermediate, but still I feel you should have command over it. Come on, turn the radio on. Chalo. Please take a minute and go through this yourself in the same manner as I did. See, let me tell you one more thing. In FR, your teacher gives you time to solve the question. In SFM also, AFM what you call it, your teacher gives you time to solve the question. In audit, I will make you understand the things. I will make you learn the things also. But it is you, when I have to give you 1 minute or 2 minutes, who has to go through this topic. So this is your own practice that happens in that time. So utilize it very effectively. Okay? Your time starts now. Last 20 seconds. Please be fast. Please be energetic. Speak while you are reading it. Okay? Speak. Put in your full energy. At least 20-30 calories to be burnt in each session. DDD. चलें आगे. Awesome. Now, last topic before the break, and then you can enjoy your break of 15 minutes. Sir, what is the topic all about? So the name of the topic is professional judgment. Very easy topic. Very, very easy topic. What is the judgment, sir? So we have to take a lot of decisions in the audit. Sir, what are those decisions? Deciding the materiality levels, deciding the nature, timing, and extent of procedure, deciding whether the evidence is sufficient and appropriate, based on that evidence, what opinion to give. All those are our decisions in the audit. So whatever decisions that you take, that is professional judgment. So it says professional judgment is nothing but the application of three things. Sir, what are those three things? First thing is your knowledge. Sir, what do you mean by knowledge? You studied audit in CA intermediate? Yes, sir. You studied audit at CA final level? Yes, sir. So 2 times you have studied audit. So whatever knowledge that you have gained, you have to apply that. Then comes your training. You're doing your articleship. I hope the dummy people stay shut. Most of you are doing your articleship apart from the dummy ones. Yes, sir, we are doing our articleship. So what you are going through? Training. You are getting to know something. You have to apply that. So application of your knowledge, training, and while doing all of this, you are gaining some experience. So 3 things: knowledge, training, and experience. When you apply this knowledge, every knowledge, yeah, knowledge related to auditing and accounting, knowledge related to auditing and accounting. Application of relevant training, knowledge, and experience in the context of auditing, accounting, and ethical standard. Not all the knowledge, only the knowledge related to auditing, accounting, and ethical standards. When you apply this knowledge in making informed decisions about the course of action appropriate in the circumstances of audit engagement, that is called professional judgment. So professional judgment is just applying what you know while you are performing your audit engagement. Is this part clear? Yes, sir. So let's revise this definition again just for your understanding purpose. So what is the definition? Application of your relevant knowledge, training, and experience. So which knowledge? In the context of auditing, accounting, and ethical standards. You also need to be ethical, that we'll study in professional ethics, so need not worry about it. When you are making informed decisions in the course of audit engagement. That's it. So sir, at what stages do we need to require the professional judgment? Did I tell you about the audit cycle? Yes, sir. Throughout that cycle, you need to apply your professional judgment. That means, first of all, you determine the audit risk. If the risk is higher, you accordingly perform your procedures. So you determine the materiality and audit risk initially. Based on that, you perform the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedure. What would be the next point without any cheating? Without any cheating, what should be the next point? After audit procedure, what will come? So from the audit procedures, we get evidence. Absolutely. So evaluating whether sufficient and appropriate evidence has been obtained. From that evidence, what do you draw? Conclusion. So drawing of conclusion based on the evidence obtained. And last point is very simple. Wherever there is management judgment, auditor also applies its judgment. Wherever there is management judgment, auditor also applies the judgment. So the last point is evaluation of management judgment in applying the entities applicable FRF. So last point is very simple. This whole part is done. So first of all, materiality and audit risk. Based on that, you perform the audit procedure. From those procedure, what do you get? Sufficient and appropriate evidence. From that evidence, you draw the conclusion. And last point is, wherever there is management judgment, there is auditor's judgment. So till now, what we discussed, we understood the meaning of reasonable assurance. We understood why we obtain reasonable assurance, because of inherent limitations of auditing. What is the power of the auditor to tackle with inherent limitations of auditing? Professional skepticism. And after skepticism, we studied professional judgment. So only 4 topics done, but done with proper quality. Now, after the break, we will cover the remaining topics. Giving you a 15 minutes break. Enjoy and relax yourself.